Lisa Martinez stood at the edge of the great hall and felt her heart beat fast in her chest. She had waited her whole life for this moment. The big space station called Harmony Prime was floating in the darkness of space, and today it would host the most important meeting in human history. The Galactic Council was finally ready to talk to Earth as equals. The hall was huge and filled with creatures she had only seen in pictures before. Tall blue beings with skin like crystals walked around, making soft chiming sounds when they moved. Strange cloud-like aliens floated inside clear suits that kept them together. Cat-like people with golden fur and sharp eyes talked in groups near the center of the room. There were dozens of different types of aliens from across the galaxy, and they all belonged to the council that had ruled space for thousands of years. Lisa looked down at her dark blue uniform and the papers in her hand. She was Earth's youngest ambassador and the first human woman to get this job. People back home were counting on her to make a good first impression. She had studied for years and learned 14 different alien languages. She knew their customs and their laws. She was ready for this. Jake Peterson watched from the viewing area above the main floor. He was Lisa's friend and her military guard for this trip. Jake was tall with broad shoulders and short brown hair. His blue eyes were focused on Lisa as she walked toward the center of the hall where all the important aliens were sitting. He had known Lisa since they were both young officers, and he had seen her work harder than anyone else to get here. Lisa walked up to the seating area with her head held high. The papers in her hand proved she had the right to sit with the other ambassadors. She had earned this spot fair and square. But as she got closer, a large cat-like alien stepped in front of her and blocked her way. The alien was bigger than Lisa, with golden fur and green eyes that looked cold. His name was High Counselor Vextar, and he spoke for the Cathara people. He looked down at Lisa, and his tail moved back and forth like he was annoyed. "The seats for new species are in the back area," Vextar said in a smooth voice that did not sound friendly. "This space is only for civilizations that have been around for a long time." Lisa felt her face get hot, but she kept her voice calm and steady. "I am Ambassador Martinez from the Terran Federation," she said, and held up her papers. "These documents show that I have permission to sit here as a full member of this meeting." A crystal being that looked like it was made of blue glass came over to them. Its name was Crystal Singer Corinth, and when it talked it sounded like wind chimes. "Your species has barely left its own solar system," it said. "What could you possibly know about things that matter to the whole galaxy?" Other aliens started to gather around, and Lisa could hear them talking among themselves. Some of them were laughing quietly and pointing at her. She had expected politics and arguments, but not this kind of treatment. They were not taking her seriously at all. A cloud alien in a clear suit floated closer, and its voice echoed from inside the container. "Also sending a female to represent your species shows that you do not understand how important meetings like this work. In proper society, the stronger gender handles these matters." The words hit Lisa like a punch to the stomach. They were not just saying humans did not belong here. They were saying she did not belong here because she was a woman. Lisa felt her hands shake a little, but she forced herself to stand up straight. She would not let them see her upset. Jake watched from above, and his hands turned into fists. He had seen Lisa succeed at everything she tried. She was smarter than most people and had worked twice as hard as anyone else to get here. She deserved to be in that room more than any of these proud aliens who had never had to fight for anything. More aliens joined the group around Lisa, and they all seemed to agree with what the others had said. A tall gray alien with 4 arms shook its head sadly. "Perhaps your species needs more time to develop before joining civilized discussion," it said in a voice that sounded like it was trying to be kind but was actually very rude. Lisa looked around at all the faces staring at Her? Some looked amused, like they were watching a funny show. Others looked annoyed, like she was wasting their time. A few seemed almost sorry for her, but not sorry enough to help. She was completely alone in the middle of all these powerful beings. And none of them thought she belonged there. The worst part was that she had been so excited about this day. She had imagined walking into the hall and showing everyone how capable humans could be. She had thought about making friends with aliens from other worlds and learning about their cultures. Instead, she was standing there, being told she was not good enough because of where she came from and what gender she was. Vexstar looked pleased with himself as he watched Lisa struggle to find words. "I suggest you take your proper place with the observers," he said, and pointed toward the back of the hall, where there were simple chairs far away from the main discussion area. "You can watch and learn how real diplomacy works." Lisa felt tears starting to form in her eyes, but she blinked them away. She would not cry in front of these aliens. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break down. But inside, she felt crushed and humiliated. All her dreams and all her hard work seemed pointless now that Jake could not stand to watch anymore. His friend was being treated badly, and he was not going to let it continue. He got up from his seat and started walking toward the stairs that led down to the main floor. Other humans in the viewing area looked at him with surprise, but he did not stop. Lisa was still standing in the center of the group of aliens trying to figure out what to do next when she heard familiar footsteps behind her. She turned around and saw Jake walking toward her with a determined look on his face. Her heart sank because she knew he was about to do something that could get them both in serious trouble. Jake walked down the steps from the viewing area, and his boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. Every alien in the great hall turned to look at him as he crossed the space toward Lisa. The whole room got very quiet, and Jake could feel hundreds of eyes watching his every move. Lisa saw him coming, and her heart started beating even faster. "Commander Peterson," she whispered when he got close enough to hear her. "You are not supposed to be down here. This could cause big problems between our governments." Jake looked at her with his steady blue eyes, and then turned to face all the aliens who were staring at them. His face was calm, but Lisa could see he was angry about how they had treated her. "Too late for worrying about that ambassador," he said in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "They already caused the problems." He reached into his pack and pulled out a small folding chair. Without asking permission from anyone, he opened it up and set it down right next to where Lisa was supposed to sit. Then he looked directly at High Counselor Vexstar, who was watching with his mouth hanging open. "You are absolutely right about one thing," Jake said to the cat-like alien. "This area is for established civilizations only." Vexstar's ears went flat against his head, and his tail started moving faster. He could sense that something had changed in the human, but he was not sure what it meant. "Commander, you are breaking the rules," he said, trying to sound like he was in charge. "Go back to where you belong right now." Jake sat down in his chair and crossed his arms. "No," he said simply. The word echoed in the quiet hall and made several aliens step backward. "You see, there is something important about humans that you seem to have forgotten." He pointed to Lisa with obvious respect and pride in his voice. "This woman finished first in her class at the best school on Earth for learning about other species. She has helped make peace between fighting groups 3 different times. She can speak 14 different alien languages better than most of you can speak your own. She has more real experience dealing with other species than most of your oldest diplomats." The hall was completely silent now. Crystal Singer Corinth's blue crystal body was glowing brighter, which meant it was getting upset. "This is not how things are done," it chimed angrily. "Military people have no place in diplomatic meetings." Jake smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "You are right again," he said. "But here is something about humans you should learn before you decide we do." not matter. He leaned back in his chair and looked around at all the aliens like he owned the place. We never abandon our own people. Not ever. Lisa felt a warm feeling spread through her chest as Jake's words rang out across the hall. She had been ready to face this alone and carry the weight of representing all humans by herself. But Jake, sitting beside her, was not just showing support. He was making a statement that would be heard across the galaxy. When you insult our ambassador, Jake continued, and his voice carried to every corner of the huge room, you insult every human who ever lived. When you say she is not qualified because she is a woman, you show us more about your own problems than about ours. A cloud alien's containment suit started flashing with red lights, which meant it was very angry. You cannot just decide to be part of these meetings, it said in its echoing voice. There are rules and procedures and ways things have always been done. Jake laughed, and the sound was low and dangerous. Rules? You mean like the ones that should have stopped you from treating a qualified diplomat badly because of what species she is and what gender she is? Some of the aliens started talking to each other in worried voices. They had expected the humans to accept being pushed around and go sit in the back quietly. Instead, one of them was challenging everything they had said and done. A tall gray alien with 4 arms stepped forward. Human, it said in a voice that was supposed to sound threatening, you will leave now or face serious consequences. Jake did not move from his chair. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small computer tablet. He tossed it onto the big table in the center of the seating area, where it landed with a loud thunk. Before you start making threats, he said, you might want to read the Galactic Diplomatic Accord section, 15 Part 7. The aliens looked at each other with confusion and worry. Crystal Singer Corinth reached out with one of its crystal arms and picked up the tablet. The screen immediately showed text in dozens of different languages, so every species could read it. Any species that presents proper diplomatic papers. Corinth read out loud, and its chiming voice now sounded uncertain, shall be given equal representation, no matter how their society works, or what gender rules they have, or how advanced their technology is. That is correct, Lisa said, and she felt her confidence coming back strong. And according to Section 23, any discrimination based on biological differences is grounds for formal punishment of the species that did it. The hall exploded with noise as aliens started talking frantically to their advisors and checking their own legal databases. Jake leaned over to Lisa and whispered, I may have spent the last 3 weeks reading galactic law instead of sleeping. But Vexstar was not ready to give up. His green eyes got narrow as he stared at the 2 humans sitting calmly in their chairs. Very well, he said. You may have found some legal words that help you, but law and reality are different things. You claim your ambassador is qualified? Prove it. Lisa felt Jake tense up beside her, but she put her hand on his arm to keep him calm. What exactly do you want us to prove? She asked. The Council has been trying to solve a crisis for months, and our best minds cannot find an answer. Vexstar announced to the whole assembly. The Helix Nebula conflict. 3 species fighting over resources and threatening to destroy peace in an entire section of the galaxy. If your ambassador is really as capable as you claim, let her solve it. Worried murmurs spread through the crowd. The Helix Nebula conflict was famous for being impossible to fix. 3 different species had been fighting over the same area of space for years. The military Corvin Empire wanted the rare minerals there for making weapons. The trading Velis Consortium wanted control of the space routes for business. The mysterious Talmyran Collective just wanted everyone to leave them alone in what they considered holy space. Dozens of diplomatic teams had tried to find a solution, and all of them had failed. Jake felt his stomach drop. This was exactly the kind of trap designed to make humans look stupid in front of everyone. But when he looked at Lisa, he saw something that surprised him. She looked excited. "I accept your challenge," Lisa said, and stood up from her chair. Somehow, when she stood, she seemed to command everyone's attention. "But I have some requirements." Vextar's ears perked up with surprise. "You think you can make demands?" "Not demands," Lisa said with a slight smile. "Professional requirements. First, I need access to all the information about this conflict, including secret diplomatic messages. Second, I want 48 hours to prepare my solution. And third," she looked at Jake, and her smile got bigger, "I solve this crisis, humanity gets permanent seats on the High Council with full voting rights." The assembly hall went crazy with angry shouts and heated arguments. Jake grinned because Lisa was not just accepting their challenge. She was making the stakes so high that either humanity would be destroyed forever, or they would become one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. "And if you fail?" Vextar asked when the noise finally died down. Lisa's smile showed complete confidence. "Then we will accept being treated as a junior species and follow your seating rules." Jake admired her courage, but privately wondered if she knew something he did not. The Helix Nebula conflict had been declared impossible to solve. "Mine's much older and more experienced than any human." The vote to accept Lisa's challenge took 2 hours of heated debate. Jake sat in his chair beside her, listening to aliens argue in dozens of different languages. Some thought it was unfair to give humans such an impossible task. Others said it was exactly what the arrogant newcomers deserved. In the end, they voted to accept Lisa's terms, and Jake watched his friend shake hands with beings who clearly expected her to fail. Lisa spent the next 48 hours working harder than Jake had ever seen anyone work before. She got access to the Council's main computer system and pulled up hundreds of years of diplomatic records about the Helix Nebula conflict. Jake brought her food and coffee while she stared at holographic displays that showed charts and graphs. And maps of star systems. The information was overwhelming. The Corvan Empire was a military society that needed rare metals from the nebula to build their weapons and ships. They were proud warriors who believed that strength was the most important thing in the universe. The Velis Consortium was made up of traders and merchants who wanted to control the space routes through the nebula, because millions of ships passed through there every year. The Talmyran Collective was a religious group that had been using the nebula for spiritual ceremonies for thousands of years and considered it sacred space. "Every solution anyone has tried focuses on dividing up the territory," Lisa said during one of her brief breaks. "Give the Corvans this part, give the Velis that part, and leave the Talmyran alone in their section. But it never works because they all want the same areas." Jake watched her work and brought her more coffee. "What makes you think you can find an answer when hundreds of diplomats have failed?" Lisa rubbed her tired eyes and smiled. "Because I am not trying to divide anything. I am trying to give everyone what they actually want." She went back to work, pulling up star charts and mineral surveys and trade route maps. Jake noticed she was not just looking at the Helix Nebula anymore. She was studying the whole region of space around it, including systems that had never been explored. On the morning of her presentation, the assembly hall was packed with more aliens than Jake had ever seen in one place. Representatives from species across the galaxy had come to watch either humanity's greatest success or most embarrassing failure. Lisa stood at the central podium looking small, but completely confident. "Honored delegates," she began, and her clear voice carried through the huge space. "The Helix Nebula conflict has continued for so long because every proposed solution has focused on territorial division or resource sharing. You have all been trying to solve the wrong problem." She activated a holographic display that showed the disputed nebula in 3 dimensions. Everyone could see the swirling clouds of gas and the bright stars inside where the rare minerals formed. The Corvin Empire wants the nebula's rare metals for military purposes. The Velis Consortium wants control of the trade routes. The Talmyran Collective wants to preserve their sacred space. These are all reasonable goals. Murmurs of confusion spread through the crowd. Everyone already knew what each side wanted. That was why the conflict was so hard to solve. The solution is not to divide the nebula, Lisa continued as she expanded the display to show a much larger area of space. The solution is to eliminate the need to fight over it completely, she highlighted. 3 star systems near the nebula that Jake had never heard of before. They were marked as unexplored on all the official charts. Long-range surveys have identified these 3 systems with identical resource profiles to the Helix Nebula. Instead of fighting over one location, we give each species their own, Crystal Singer. Corinth's crystal body pulsed with skeptical colors. These systems are unexplored and potentially dangerous, it chimed. Why would any species accept unknown territory over proven resources? Lisa smiled, and Jake could see she had been waiting for exactly this question. Because humanity will provide all exploration and development services, completely free of charge. The hall erupted in shocked discussions and angry shouts. Jake felt his heart start pounding because this was the first time he had heard Lisa mention such a huge commitment. How could Earth possibly explore and develop 3 entire star systems at the same time? In exchange, Lisa continued speaking over the noise. Earth requests a small percentage of extracted resources and preferred trading status with all 3 species. We are offering to take all the risks and do all the work while everyone else gets exactly what they want. High Counselor Vexstar stood up slowly, and his tail was lashing back and forth with agitation. This is impossible, he declared. No single species has the ability to explore and develop 3 star systems simultaneously while providing security guarantees. You are absolutely right, Lisa agreed, and Jake wondered if she was about to admit defeat. No single species could do this. But humans do not work alone. The holographic display changed to show detailed technical information and lists of ships and equipment. Jake stared at the screen in amazement as he read names of species he recognized. The Terran Federation has already negotiated preliminary agreements with 12 other species for joint exploration ventures, Lisa explained. The Andromedans will provide deep space survey technology. The Centauri Republic offers advanced mining equipment. The Altarian Collective contributes defense systems. Jake realized what Lisa had been doing during those long hours when he thought she was just studying the conflict. She had been quietly building the largest cooperation project between different species in galactic history. While everyone else was focused on the legal challenge, she had been making deals and forming partnerships. Each participating species gets priority access to resources in their areas of expertise, Lisa continued. The Corvins get exclusive access to military-grade materials. The Velis Consortium gains 3 new trade hubs with guaranteed traffic. The Talmyran Collective receives a completely protected sanctuary with no outside interference ever. She turned away from the display to address the assembly directly. This is not just a solution to one conflict. It is a template for how species can achieve their goals through cooperation instead of competition. The silence that followed was complete and lasted for several minutes. Jake could see delegates frantically talking to their advisors and running calculations on their personal computers. They were trying to find problems with what appeared to be a genuinely revolutionary approach to galactic diplomacy. A small blue alien that Jake had not noticed before stood up in the back of the hall. What guarantees do we have that humanity can deliver on these promises? It asked in a high-pitched voice. Lisa had clearly expected this question too. All participating species will sign binding contracts with penalty clauses, she said. If any party fails to meet their obligations, they forfeit their share of resources to the others. Humanity is willing to put our entire industrial capacity on the line as guarantee of good faith. Jake felt a mixture of pride and terror as he listened to Lisa commit their entire civilization to this massive project. If it worked, humanity would become one of the most important species in the galaxy. If it failed, they would be bankrupt and humiliated. Another alien stood up. Jake recognized it as a representative from the Helix Nebula region. What about our existing claims and investments in the current disputed territory? All existing claims will be honored and compensated, Lisa replied immediately. Species that give up claims in the Helix Nebula will receive equivalent or better claims in the new systems, plus compensation for any investments they have already made. The questions continued for another hour, but Lisa had an answer for every concern. Jake watched in admiration as she demonstrated not just intelligence, but months of careful planning and preparation. She had not just solved an impossible problem. She had created a completely new way of thinking about galactic cooperation. The voting process took 6 long hours, and Jake felt like each minute lasted forever. He sat beside Lisa watching as delegates from dozens of species huddled in groups, talking in excited voices. Some aliens looked angry and frustrated. Others seemed amazed and kept checking their calculations over and over. A few appeared thoughtful, like they were seeing possibilities they had never imagined before. Lisa remained calm during the entire process, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. Everything humanity had dreamed of achieving in space depended on what happened in the next few hours. If the Council rejected her proposal, Earth would be forced into a junior position for generations. If they accepted it, humans would become major players in galactic politics overnight. Representatives from the 3 species involved in the Helix Nebula conflict were having intense discussions among themselves. The Corvin military leader was a massive alien with gray skin and scars across his face from old battles. He kept pointing at the star charts and arguing with his advisors in their harsh-sounding language. The Velas Consortium had sent their best negotiator, who looked like a tall, thin human, except for her silver skin and completely black eyes. She was running complex economic calculations on a portable computer and frowning at the results. The Talmyran representative was the most unusual of all. It was a being of pure energy that glowed with soft blue light and spoke through a translation device. It had been silent for most of the debate, but now it was pulsing with different colors as it communicated with others of its kind through some method Jake did not understand. "Do you really think this will work?" Jake whispered to Lisa during a brief recess. Lisa looked around at all the activity in the hall and nodded slowly. "The math works," she said. "Each species gets more than they would from fighting over the original nebula, and at less cost. The only question is whether they can overcome thousands of years of thinking in terms of competition instead of cooperation. And if they can't, then we go home and spend the next century proving we belong here the hard way," Lisa replied with a small smile. When the voting finally began, Jake held his breath. High Counselor Vextar called each species by name, and their representatives stood to announce their decision. The Andromedans voted yes, because they would get to use their survey technology in 3 new systems. The Centauri Republic voted yes, because of the mining opportunities. The Alterians voted yes, because they believed in the security benefits. Not everyone was convinced. The Jeffreyan Collective voted no, because they thought humanity was promising more than it could deliver. A group of species from the Outer Rim abstained, because they wanted to see how the project developed before committing to anything. The 3 species most directly involved in the conflict were the last to vote. A Corvin military leader stood up, and his scarred face was impossible to read. "The Corvin Empire," he said in his deep, gravelly voice, "has fought for these resources for 5 generations. We have lost many warriors and spent vast amounts of money." Jake felt his heart sink. It sounded like the Corvins were about to reject the proposal. However, the Corvin continued, "This human offers us something better than what we fought for. 3 systems instead of 1. Resources guaranteed instead of contested. And allies instead of enemies." The Corvin Empire votes yes. The Velis negotiator was next, and she stood gracefully with her silver skin gleaming under the hall's lights. "The consortium has analyzed the economic projections thoroughly," she said in a voice like music. "The projected profits from 3 guaranteed trade hubs exceed anything we could achieve through continued conflict. We vote yes." All eyes turned to the glowing energy being from the Talmyran collective. It pulsed with different colors for several seconds before its translation device activated. "For 10,000 years, our people have meditated in the sacred nebula, while others fought around us," it said in a voice that sounded like wind through crystals. "This human offers us something we never dared hope for. True peace and sanctuary forever protected. We vote yes with gratitude." The final tally was announced by Crystal Singer. Corinth, whose crystal body was now glowing with what Jake had learned, were colors of excitement. 847 votes in favor, 23 opposed, 15 abstentions. The Helix Nebula Cooperation Accord is approved. The hall erupted in celebration, and Jake felt like his heart might explode with pride. Lisa had not just solved an impossible problem. She had created something entirely new in galactic politics. But the surprises were not over yet. High Counselor Vextar approached them as the noise died down, and there was something different in his green eyes. It might have been respect. "Ambassador Martinez," he said formally, "the Council recognizes not only your diplomatic achievement, but the wisdom of your approach. You have demonstrated that humanity possesses qualities we had not anticipated." Lisa stood and bowed her head graciously. "Thank you, High Counselor. I hope this marks the beginning of productive cooperation between all our species." "Indeed," Vextar replied. Then his gaze shifted to Jake, and his expression became more complex. "Commander Peterson, your actions 2 days ago were highly irregular and technically violated diplomatic protocol." Jake tensed, wondering if punishment was coming despite their success. Lisa moved slightly closer to him in a gesture of support. "However," Vextar continued, "they also demonstrated a principle that we in our ancient wisdom had perhaps forgotten. The value of standing beside those we believe in, regardless of convention or consequence." The High Counselor gestured toward the assembly hall, where delegates were already forming new discussion groups and planning committees. "You called Ambassador Martinez your equal and treated her as such when others would not. In doing so, you revealed not her weakness, but our own Crystal Singer." Corinth approached them, and its chiming voice carried what sounded like amusement. "The Council has decided to establish a new tradition," it announced. "When any ambassador faces discrimination or unfair treatment in these halls, any member of their delegation may take a seat beside them in solidarity. We are calling it the Peterson Protocol," added the cloud alien, whose containment suit was now flashing with what Jake had learned were colors of approval. Jake felt his face get hot with embarrassment, but Lisa squeezed his arm with obvious pride. "It is about time someone made basic decency into an official rule," she said. As the formal session concluded and delegates began to leave, Vextar made one final announcement that surprised everyone. "Ambassador Martinez, the Council would be honored if you would accept the position of Special Mediator for interspecies conflicts. Your unique approach to problem solving appears to be exactly what the galaxy needs in these changing times." Lisa looked at Jake, who nodded encouragingly. "I accept on one condition," she said. "Commander Peterson remains as my military liaison and advisor. We work as a team or not at all." Naturally, Vextar agreed with what might have been a smile. "After all, humans have taught us that some partnerships transcend all protocol." As they walked out of the assembly hall together, Jake could not help but grin. The corridors of Harmony Prime seemed different now. Instead of feeling like outsiders, trying to prove they belonged, he and Lisa were walking as equals among the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "So, Ambassador," Jake said as they headed toward their quarters, "how does it feel to be the galaxy's go-to problem solver?" Lisa laughed, and the sound echoed pleasantly in the wide corridor. "Like I finally found where I belong. And Jake," she looked at him with genuine warmth in her eyes, "thank you for taking that seat beside me. It made all the difference in the world." "Always," Jake replied without hesitation. "That is what humans do for each other." 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the exploration ship Terra Nova and watched 3 different alien fleets working together in perfect coordination. Corvan military vessels provided security, while Centauri mining ships extracted rare metals from asteroids. Andromedan survey drones mapped every corner of the new star system, while Altarian defense platforms kept watch for any threats. The first of Lisa's 3 promised systems was already producing more resources than the old Helix Nebula ever had. The Corvans were getting materials for their weapons that were better quality than anything they had found before. The Velis Consortium was moving cargo through new trade routes that cut travel time by weeks. The Tau Myron Collective had their sacred sanctuary completely protected and undisturbed. Status report from System 2 came a voice over the communication system. It was Captain Susan Clark who was overseeing the development there. "The Andromedan survey teams have confirmed mineral deposits that exceed our best projections by 30%. Jake smiled as he listened to the reports coming in from all 3 systems. Lisa had promised the impossible, and somehow humanity was delivering on every commitment. It helped that 12 different species were working together, but it was still the biggest undertaking in galactic history. Lisa walked onto the observation deck, carrying a cup of coffee and looking tired but satisfied. Her new position as special mediator kept her busy traveling between different systems and solving problems as they came up. In 6 months, she had prevented 2 wars and negotiated trade agreements that benefited dozens of species. "How are things going with the Helix situation?" Jake asked. "Better than anyone expected," Lisa replied as she joined him at the window. "The 3 species that were fighting have actually become allies. They are sharing technology and resources in ways that would have been impossible during the conflict." Jake watched a group of Corvan and Velis ships working side by side to install a new communication relay. Hard to believe they were shooting at each other a year ago. "That is the thing about most conflicts," Lisa said thoughtfully. "People fight because they think they have to compete for limited resources. When you show them how to cooperate instead of compete, everyone benefits." A message indicator started blinking on Lisa's personal communicator. She checked it and smiled. "The Council wants us back at Harmony Prime next week. Apparently, there is another impossible situation they want us to solve." "Any idea what it is this time?" "Something about trade disputes in the Andromeda sector," Lisa said. 4 different species claiming the same shipping routes and threatening to close them to everyone else." Jake laughed. "Sounds familiar." "Let me guess. We find a way to give everyone what they actually want instead of fighting over what they think they want." "You are learning," Lisa said with a grin. Their conversation was interrupted by an incoming transmission from Harmony Prime. "High Counselor." Vexstar appeared on the screen, looking more relaxed than Jake had ever seen him. The proud cat-like alien had become one of Lisa's strongest supporters over the past months. "Ambassador Martinez," Vexstar said with obvious respect. "I wanted to inform you personally about the latest council vote. The Peterson Protocol has been implemented in all official diplomatic proceedings." Throughout council space, Jake felt a mixture of pride and embarrassment. The rule that allowed anyone to sit beside a colleague facing discrimination had already been used dozens of times. Species that had never had a voice in galactic politics were finally being heard. Furthermore, Vexstar continued, the Council has voted to establish the Terran Academy of Cooperative Diplomacy. We want human methods of problem-solving to be taught to diplomats from all species. Lisa looked stunned. That is quite an honor. High Counselor, it is well deserved, Vexstar replied. Your approach has already prevented more conflicts in 6 months than traditional methods managed in 6 years. The galaxy is becoming a more peaceful place because of what you started after. The transmission ended. Jake and Lisa stood quietly looking out at the busy scene in space around them. Ships from a dozen different species were working together on projects that would have been impossible before the Helix Nebula Accord. The cooperation was spreading beyond just the 3 original systems to other parts of the galaxy. Do you ever think about that day in the assembly hall? Jake asked. Every day, Lisa replied. I still cannot believe how differently things turned out from what I expected. What do you mean?